Do you know the hidden secrets of the Vatican that even most Catholics don't know? Have you ever wondered how a tiny city could hold so much influence over millions of people around the world? What if I told you that behind these ancient walls lie stories of faith, power, intrigue, and mystery that have been carefully guarded for centuries? Imagine walking through streets where every stone tells a story. What would you discover? Could you imagine secrets that the world has never seen? How would it feel to uncover them? What would it mean for your understanding of history and faith if some of these stories were true? Early history and origins. Long before the Vatican became a city of marble, gold, and holy relics, it was just a quiet hill on the edge of ancient Rome, a place called Mons Vaticanus. At that time, it wasn't sacred, it wasn't holy, it was mysterious. Romans considered it a place filled with omens, even cursed by ancient spirits. But fate had different plans, because here, in this seemingly insignificant place, one man's death would ignite the flame of an empire of faith. Saint Peter. Can you imagine it? A fisherman from Galilee, once ordinary, crucified upside down in Rome, and buried in what would one day become the center of the Catholic world. Would anyone back then have believed that his humble tomb would become the heart of one of the most powerful institutions on earth? Years passed, and whispers began. Pilgrims started visiting Peter's burial site in secret, lighting candles in the night, praying quietly where they believed a saint rested. These were dangerous times. Christianity was illegal. Faith was hidden in catacombs, prayers were whispered underground, and the word church wasn't yet a grand building. It was a small gathering of believers. Now imagine the first bishops of Rome, walking those same dirt roads, knowing that at any moment soldiers could arrest them for their beliefs. Yet they didn't stop. They met in secret, made decisions that would shape Christian doctrine for generations. What if those early meetings contained teachings that were later hidden or changed? What if the foundation of the church was more complex, shaped by both faith and fear? Think about it. What would you have done? Would you have risked your life for an unseen God, for a message that defied the empire? And slowly, over centuries, as Rome began to crumble, a new kind of power was rising, spiritual power. The pagan temples faded, but the memory of Peter did not. On that same ground, the first chapel was built, small, humble, but eternal in purpose. Can you picture it? The sound of prayers echoing in a room lit only by candles, while outside, the mighty Roman Empire fell. History was being rewritten. The Hill of Omens had become the Hill of Faith. Vatican Hill, now sacred, now untouchable. And from that sacred soil, a church would rise that would outlast empires, kings, and wars, Middle Ages, and papal power struggles. As centuries passed, the Vatican transformed from a sacred site into something far greater, a kingdom within a kingdom. And at its head sat the Pope, God's representative on earth, but also, in many ways, a monarch. The Middle Ages were not an age of peace. They were an age of power, and the Vatican stood at the center of it all. Can you imagine? The same church that once hid from the Romans now commanded armies. The same leaders who once prayed in catacombs now ruled from palaces of gold. Popes became more than spiritual fathers. They were kings without crowns. They crowned emperors, declared wars, and decided who would rule and who would fall. The word of the Pope could bless your nation or doom it. But with power comes temptation. Not every pope was a saint. Some were warriors, others were politicians, and a few sinners. Take Pope Alexander VI from the infamous Borgia family. He was known for scandal, ambition, and his thirst for power. His name became a symbol of corruption, yet he strengthened the Vatican's political control. Could it be that the Church needed such figures to survive turbulent times, or did those ambitions nearly destroy its soul? Imagine living in Rome then, streets filled with whispers, cardinals plotting in shadows, assassins hired by noble families, and at the center of it all, the Pope, holding both the cross and the sword. Would you have trusted him? Would you have followed a church that had become entangled in royal bloodlines and secret alliances? Still, through all the corruption and chaos, faith didn't die. The people still believed. Maybe they looked past the sins of men and saw something divine in the message itself. The Vatican survived invasions, betrayals, and reformations. It stood firm while kings rose and fell. And maybe that's the greatest mystery, not just how it gained power, but how it never lost it. Behind the marble walls, letters were exchanged, treaties signed, and plots unfolded that shaped all of Europe. The Church had become a living empire, an empire of both heaven and earth. And yet, something new was coming, a light of art, knowledge, and beauty, the Renaissance. It would bring new glory, but also new secrets, because when faith met art, power took a new form. Renaissance and art secrets. The Renaissance was not just a period of art, it was a rebirth of power, intelligence, and beauty, and the Vatican was at its beating heart. For centuries, faith had been a weapon and a shield, but now it became a canvas. Imagine stepping into 15th century Rome. The air is thick with ambition. The world is changing. Kings rise, empires fall. But within these sacred walls, something eternal is being painted. Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, names that echo through history. But ask yourself, were they simply artists, or were they storytellers of divine secrets? Picture Michelangelo, lying on his back for years, painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Every brushstroke filled with symbolism, every face, every hand positioned with meaning. Could some of those faces be people he knew? Even popes and cardinals hidden in plain sight. Look closely. The creation of Adam, the separation between God and man. Some scholars say it's shaped like the human brain. Was Michelangelo saying something forbidden? That divine creation and human intellect were one and the same. What do you think? Was it genius, rebellion, or revelation? Now imagine Raphael, painting the School of Athens in the Vatican's chambers. Philosophers, scientists, and thinkers filling the room. But this is the Vatican. Why would pagan philosophers be painted inside a Christian palace? Could this be a message of unity between knowledge and faith? Or was it the artist's quiet protest, a challenge to the Church's authority? And what about Da Vinci? Though not a Vatican artist himself, his shadow lingers in this era. Secret codes, hidden symbols, the union of science and spirituality. Could the Renaissance artists have been part of a silent brotherhood, embedding truths within art that only the initiated could read? Walk through these same halls today. Marble floors echoing under your steps, frescoes watching silently from above. How many secrets hide within their colors? How many eyes from the past look down, guarding the stories they were never allowed to tell? Can you feel it? The sense that art was not just decoration, but a language of power. Every brushstroke could flatter a pope, warn a rival, or whisper a secret across centuries. If you were there in the time of Michelangelo, watching him create in secret frustration under the Pope's command, what would you have said to him? Would you have dared to ask what his true message was? Perhaps even now, the answers lie hidden in plain sight, within colors that fade but never truly disappear. Modern Vatican and Papacy expanded. As centuries rolled forward, the Vatican entered a new era, modern in appearance, but still bound by ancient secrets. The Renaissance gave it glory, but the modern age would test its soul. Wars, revolutions, new ideas all reshaped the world. Yet the Vatican stood still, timeless, silent, like an observer of human history. During the 20th century, the world watched popes not as distant figures, but as global voices. Pius XII faced the darkness of World War II. Whispers say the Vatican knew more than it revealed: secret communications, hidden refugees, quiet diplomacy in the face of destruction. What do you think? Could neutrality sometimes hide strategy? Then came John Paul II, the People's Pope. He traveled more than any of his predecessors, spoke to millions, and helped bring down the Iron Curtain. But behind his gentle presence, what unseen battles did he fight? How many truths did he carry alone? And now, in our own time, Pope Francis, a man of humility, simplicity, and reform. Yet in a world filled with information, scandals, and shifting faith, how much can even a pope truly reveal? The Vatican remains one of the most secretive places on earth. Beneath its marble halls lie the Vatican archives, miles of documents, letters, and records locked away for centuries. What's in there? Lost gospels, ancient prophecies, evidence of miracles, or cover-ups? Imagine walking through those corridors. Endless shelves of parchment, each one holding a piece of truth that could change history. What would you open first?